So growing up in it, pretty much you didn't have a choice. You were chained to the fence post at a young age. So at probably about 8 years old, I knew that wood flooring was going to be my life. Didn't know that piece of 2 1/4 was going to take me around the world.
All right, welcome for the first time to our new podcast location, our studio at Specialty Forest Products in Hudson, New Hampshire. Wood Floor Business Magazine brings you all things wood floor, the podcast where craftsmanship meets community. Today's guest isn't blazing trails throughout the Appalachian wilderness, but he is carving paths in classrooms and job sites around the world. Daniel Boone, yes, a direct descendant of the famed frontiersman and a pioneer in his own right, is going to be here to talk to us about his hardwood flooring education. From working at the age of 12, running an edger, to leading technical training across continents, Daniel brings a depth of insight that's shaped crews, taught thousands, and kept the art alive in our trade today. Stick around, we're diving into his journey, teaching philosophy, and the stories that built his legacy. Floor pros around the world, and I mean it when I say it, it's my honor and privilege to welcome Master Hardwood Floor Pro Daniel Boone. Now let's get to it. Daniel Boone, welcome to All Things Wood Floor.
Thank you.
You know, people probably are going to ask this question a trillion times, so you and I will get it out of the way. Everybody knows the infamous name Daniel Boone. I assume you're not related to the frontiersman, but you are in our industry what we all talk about as being a frontiersman and a statesman. I know a lot of people, I was born and raised in this industry, but you're the person people want to meet, want to speak to, like a guru in their industry. I really appreciate the fact that Wood Floor Business set this up so that you could be here and speak with me. Thank you so much for even considering hanging out up here where it's a trillion degrees.
You're welcome, Stephen. Also, just to let you know, I am kin to the direct. I'm a direct descendant of Daniel Boone.
Oh, see, that's what...
Right.
I guess nobody wants to ask. I looked and looked and looked and looked. So when I first got in this industry in like 80-something, I remember saying to my wife, we have Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett. That was a thing back then.
Yes, you did.
So you definitely are a direct... See, that's amazing. And see, the frontiersmanship carries its way through. And you know, for people in the industry, and if they're listening to the podcast, they're going to know your teaching roots and the fact that you've spoken and taught internationally. What this industry needed decades ago was people in the trenches that really understood install, sanding, finishing, all the flooring techniques, and there's many. And I don't like when people say, you know, it's not rocket science. It's a little more complicated when you're putting the most expensive piece of furniture in somebody's house, and it is the hardwood flooring. Can you walk me through right from the beginning? How'd you get started?
Okay, so Mom and Dad's business was the wood flooring business. So growing up in it, pretty much you didn't have a choice. You were chained to the fence post at a young age. So at probably about 8 years old, I knew that wood flooring was going to be my life. Didn't know that piece of 2 1/4 was going to take me around the world. But growing up in the trade, I guess the biggest thing I wanted to do was go to work with my dad instead of go to school. And so as a teenager, you know, as a young man, as a 12-year-old, I started running a 12-inch sander in 1969. And then from that point forward, I had been running an edger for a number of years, probably for about 3 or 4 years at that point. And as you grow in the family business grows, you get more employees. And then you're expected to, if you bring a friend in from high school or you got a younger man that comes in, is that they either had to go with me as a young teenager to be trained, or they had to go with another guy that we had in our family business, and his name was Walter Zettles. And Walter was he was a mentor. He was like a big brother to me. So between Walter and I, if you were a new guy at our company, you either went with Walter or myself, or you went with both of us to a job. And we would spend probably about a year with that person. And within a year, you were expected to take a van full of equipment, go to the job, sand and finish, stain, whatever it may be, within 1 year. And I can say this, we turned out some of the best floormen in the trade out there that went on to had their own business or what have you. But it started out at a young age of bring a kid in, train him, get him on the edger, get him on the scraper, show him how to sweep and clean. And it started out at that point. So your mind is set moving forward through the years is that when you get a new guy, you've got to take this quality time with that person to get him on track, to be able to scrape, hand sand, run the edger. So we'd let them do all the smaller tasks on the job before you moved them up to the next machine. And I'd say within a year, you could get, if the person desired, if that's what they wanted to do, they wanted to stick to the trade, and in about a year, they could become a good floor man.
It's interesting you say sweep and clean. I didn't think about it. Were they vacuuming? There was no dust containment. Were they vacuuming, or was it just sweeping and cleaning?
No, back in those days, we swept.
Yeah.
The myth of the vacuum cleaner with the vacuums that they had in those days was if you did water pop, so they didn't have any backpack bags. So we didn't vacuum for the fear of putting wheel marks in your finished floor that you were getting ready to stain. So we swept for years, and I tell you, we would sweep a floor clean.
Well,
clean.
It's funny the later NWFA contracts always started with broom must be broom swept clean.
Right.
That's how far back.
Right.
So when you start, what years were these roughly? Like what years did you start? 60s, 70s, 50s? Where was that?
So in the mid 60s. So started running the edger at 8 years old, so 1965.
Okay. Were there somebody once? I was talking to somebody that's 85 now that said, there was no second, third, fourth generation back then of floor sanders. He said we installed. That's what we did, and then they gave it to the painter, and some guys did it. Was that new for you then, or had there already been generations of people with big machine and edger and those type of
Okay,
machines?
so my dad in my family, I would be the second generation. My son Justin would be the third. But my dad had a big family. He had 5 sisters, and 2 of those sisters, the men that they married, were in the flooring business. So that's where it started at, and those men were in the business probably back in the 30s and 40s, and my dad became in the business in 1955 is when he started his business. So, and that was a couple years before I was born.
Was that, were you one of those people that you're the young guy, next thing you know, you have to teach older people and manage older people?
Oh, yeah.
That's tricky, right?
Yeah, that was always a big deal of, as a young man, being able to run the edger or buffer or sander. You'd get some of these guys that come along that they could do fairly good work, but to do high-end work, running the machines, as a teenager, I was taught, hey, you make sure that guy runs his edges right or does this right. And it was always a battle when you're looking at a guy that's 30 years old and you're 17 or 18 and you're telling this guy what to do. And so it was tough growing up, is that I knew that I couldn't beat them any other way other than to be able to run the machine better than they could at that age. And I was dedicated to being the best I could be at running the sanders, the edger, buffers, whatever it may be, coating, staining, making it like a paint booth when you go painting your hot rod car. Sure. You have to get that floor that clean. So you would actually leave your own trademark and in cleanliness of the job. So back in those days, we still did the old school seal and wax. We did a lot of moisture cured urethane, did a lot of polyurethane. Very little, they didn't have hard wax oils back in that day, but the sealing wax was still popular of going back and maintaining jobs, but also sanding that finish off, putting down new stain, moisture cured urethane, polyurethane, which were the finishes of the time.
Were polyurethanes new? Because you always hear about people get away from flooring because they'd say, well, my mom had to buff it and coat it with wax all the time and it would get stains on it. Did you see the introduction of polyurethanes, or were they already around?
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw the introduction.
All the new ones, the Fabulons and the whatever else was out there.
Sure did.
Well, did you have that crazy chemistry? You always hear people talk about, well, we used gasoline and naphtha, and we had buckets and brushes. Were you coating on your hands and knees with brushes, or were there some type of applicator available?
So probably 99% of everything we did was a hand brush, either 6 or 7 inch hand brush, whether it's moisture cured or poly. The only thing that we buffed were the wax finish floors. We still, on the shellac and stuff that we put down, we would use a lamb's wool applicator. And in some cases, if the areas are big enough, we would use lamb's wool applicator for poly or for moisture cured.
Okay.
But mainly it was hand brushing for years. Even when water-based finish came out, 99% of those jobs until they came out with a T-bar. At that point, everything I did was always hand brush on water-based finishes with a Nylox brush. So it's a different style. It's a nylon type brush and not a natural bristle brush.
Do you remember back then how fast you could coat? Because that's how I started, and we knew how much we could do.
You get two men that could coat with a 6 or 7 inch brush. They could go through a house faster than a guy with a cut-in guy and a roller.
Absolutely.
Yep. You could really move.
So back when you were doing all this and you were this young, were there moments that inspired you? Were there people, was it your father? Was it the other team of people with you? You must have just seen excellence in all you were doing because, you know, when somebody that's learning, when you teach a class, for example, you must go in and go, there's 8 people here. They're all doing everything different. How did you completely refine everything you did until you got to a system for each tool that you know works for what you do?
Yep. So, you know, I'm a training manager for American Sanders, and I got asked a question about a year ago by my boss, Brian Strickland, and Brian said, Daniel, how many people that come to your classes actually sand floors like you do? And I said, none of them. So, yeah, there is a way to sand and finish, depending upon the wood, depending upon the type of sandpaper machine that you're using. But we all have different styles of techniques, and I think we all want to learn the best and learn from one another. But the way we were taught was a specific way, and I pretty much like that way. I stick to that way now as far as that method of sanding. And you can get the floor done a lot quicker, a lot flatter, get to your end point of putting the stain or the finish on, then taking the long way of multiple sandings with either machine, whether it's the big machine, the edger, the buffer, hard plate, multi-head sander, whatever it may be. So, yeah, we sand it completely different than a lot of people out there. And you don't know till you compare apples to apples. So when I started showing up at the schools, 1980, 82, we'll talk about that a little later, but to notice how people sand differently. Some people would sand out, edge out about 2 foot with the edger and feather in with the machine. And I thought, man, that's a lot of work for getting the floor done, but that's how a lot of people done it. And bottom line is, if you turn out a good job, keep doing it that way.
Yeah, exactly right.
Right.
And you look across the room when they started out the first 8 inches, and halfway around they're 4 feet out off the wall. So when you're talking, well, since it was family and you worked in that part of it early on, was there a lot of what you learned an influence from your fathers or family members?
Okay,
Not only
sure.
just the technical part, but how you should behave, how you should operate, what time you should get to work. Was there a lot of that type of mentoring?
Sure. Both my mom and my dad both were, as far as good parents, very strict. Expected the best out of you, expected you to learn quick. So my mom and dad's goal was by the time we were 16 in my family that you were able to drive. At 16, I think I got my first work van. By the time you were 18, you were self-sufficient and you could move out on your own. So the responsibility there was, this is what you're going to be doing at this age, this is what you're going to be doing at this age, and this is where you're going to live at this age. And so the point is I look back over that at the amount of responsibility that were put on me as a young man, is that this is what you're expected to do, and there were no excuses, no questions. Here's a work order, here's a repair order, go to the job, get it done. If there's any complaints, my dad would show up, and I would say back in the younger days, I had my cousin Steve Mathis work with us. Him and I are about the same age, maybe 6 weeks apart. And Steve came to work. We would go to a job and work, and the customer would be I guess, anxious, worried, nervous about. She got these 2 young teenagers in her house, and we're not old enough to even drive to get there, much less run all this equipment. And I can remember my dad coming over a number of times to different jobs, and he'd work for a couple hours, and you'd get the job finished, it's the end of the week or whatever, beginning of the next, and the customer would look at it, and the job would be literally spotless, perfect. As 2 teenage, 17, 18-year-olds could turn out a job, and that's what was expected. And so I never looked at it at any other way. And plus, in those days, in 1974, 75, through all of those years, we were doing truckloads, millions of square feet of parquet, just job after job. We did a lot of parquet. We did a lot of the old school 5/16, which is around Jacksonville. We did a lot of 2 1/4. We did a lot of gym floors in those days, stages, roller rinks, racquetball courts. So we had a variety of every kind of floor and product out there, as well as the finishes. So the rule of thumb at the company was, if it was wood floor, we could do every finish from A to Z, every type of wood from A to Z, every type of pattern from A to Z, and we did. And we had a pretty unique business, and we had some really good guys. Believe it or not, a lot of those guys were family friends and cousins of the family that worked in our family business.
Was this all in Jacksonville?
It's all in Jacksonville.
What did business look like back then? Were you waiting for a builder to build a house, or you just promoted, we are a flooring company and call us for your flooring?
I know. It was, my dad running a small ad in the local phone book, but the majority of the work came from word of mouth. And so that phone rang off the hook, and that phone still rings off the hook all these years later.
Well, Jacksonville is the largest contiguous city in America.
Right.
People don't know that. It's the biggest. I think they looked at it and said, "Well, we're too close to the border. Just give it to them." It's a big place. So when you were doing going back a little bit, when you started, was it cut nails, power nail, the non-pneumatic manual nailers, T-nails? What were you throwing? What were you installing?
Okay, so I still remember the cut nails from going on jobs as a younger man with my dad. Yeah. But back then they had a power nail Model 45. I've actually got one made in 1957. I got it at the house as one of my collection of tools, but they've been around since the mid-40s.
Yeah.
So it was a power nail 45 manual nailer. And the parquet went in, had its special PVA glues and stuff. And they had all the mastics and everything for the thicker parquets. But that was pretty much it. And I can remember maybe just a few years ago talking with my mom and dad and said, you really listened, didn't you? I said, oh, yeah. As a kid or as a teenager, you're out there trying to chase the girls or get the hot rod cars and fix them up. But as a floor man, in my mind at heart, I listened and paid attention to all the old school stuff, the shellacks and waxes, and like you said earlier, the Fabulons, the varnishes and stuff that they had when the urethanes came along. I paid attention to every bit of it, how to mix it, how to thin it, how to clean stuff up. So it was something that was just, I guess, ingrained in your mind.
Did you do unit block parquets and H block, they used to call it? I ask you this because I studied flooring, but that saved the country. The whole industry got mothballed. They started building track houses in Florida, and you'd think you're not going to use hardwood. And I remember somebody saying, oh, no, we put H block, unit block, Bruce parquet, because I think it went down, correct me if I'm wrong, with like hot, either cold stick mastic or hot roofing tar or something.
Hot roofing tar was part of it.
Right? And they put it down block after block after block. And they said, that's why today when they say, well, you can't glue down a solid. Well, they were small, like about no more than 11 inches and glued into units, sanded and finished solid. And they say it's the flooring that saved the South, that saved the industry. So you actually put that material down.
Right. So, yeah, that was another big product around Jacksonville was the unit block parquet.
Yes.
Whether it was the 4 slat, the 6 slat, the 1.5 inch or the 2 1/4 unit block, and also they had the I think it was made by Robbins. They had the unit block parquet, which it was a solid engineered piece There was a lot of that there, as well as in the older homes that were built in the teens in the 20s and 30s was top nail 5/16s.
Wow.
In Jacksonville.
I ask you this because I was in Jacksonville. I built Wood Pro Jacksonville, which we rolled into custom wholesale. And your father used to come in. That's who I knew as Mr. Boone. He said, "This is a celebrity." Well, one day, he was patiently waiting behind the counter, and some kid said to me, "What is this?" And it was H block or unit block. And I said, I only know this from my education, but that stuff is somewhere here in someone's garage. This stuff saved the industry. Your father goes, "I have it in my garage." And he talked to this kid. Not only did he sell it to him, this was the biggest compliment I ever got. He walked out, and your father came to the counter and said to me, he goes, "Yankee, you pay attention." He goes, "You know your wood."
Right.
And all these years I thought that was Daniel Boone. And then I find out this is the gentleman I'm supposed to meet this whole time. But yeah, it was really to be down there and have somebody that everyone knew who your father was come in, and to listen to the history that you went through. You've gone through all this stuff. People don't realize how much the South, and people think there's no flooring. There's a lot of flooring down there. And today there's more second floor, third floor. What did the sanding look like? Were there really good big machines? Like, probably weren't belt sanders. They were probably drum sanders. What did the machinery look like?
Okay, we had all 12-inch American drum sanders.
Big ones.
I think we used our American 8s to sand glue and stuff off of subfloors. We used the 12s to actually sand and finish all the jobs. So everything we used was American 12. We had American buffers, American edgers. So we were all American. We had hard plates and pads. There was no multi-head disc, anything like that.
To make your own hard plate?
And we could make the floor look just as good as they do now with any machine, with just what we had back in those days, sander, edger, and a buffer.
Wow. That is something. Well, also, you had the blistering heat, so I don't know how you did half the stuff that you guys did. Were they using things like steel wool and
oh, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right.
And steel wool's still there. We use steel wool for a lot of things, especially for on the sealing wax, steel wool on some of your varnishes that we would put down, we'd buff with steel wool. So if you think about it, the transition from steel wool, which is all we had to buff on the floor, or sandpaper, they didn't make red pads, white pads, and maroon pads back in the day. And when they started making them, did it make things easier? It did. It gave you some I guess, security of you're not going to scratch the floor up as bad. You had some softness in the pads that made your sanding process a lot easier. So yeah, the change in those products when they came along make things easier in your final finish or final sanding processes.
I want to talk to you about your training, but that's the transition is with all those years of experience, whereabouts at like what age or what time in your development did you break off and do your own flooring company, or did you just say, I've done this long enough, I'm going to start thinking about training? Give me just a little bit of how you got from working with your family to what you did in between there and becoming a trainer.
Okay, so I guess I'll start out. I'm still working with the family business in 1980 and 82. So 1980, actually 1979, we signed up for the Knopfman School in Memphis, Tennessee. And back in those days, you had to be sponsored by a local distributor. And, of course, our local distributor, I want to say in the 80s, was either Miami or Tucker, Georgia is where Custom Wholesale was. I don't think they had the Jacksonville branch at that point. So I was sponsored by Custom Wholesale. The class for the 1979 class actually was sold out, so I got into the March of 1980 class, which was class number 80. Was actually the third class. 80-3 was that class. And the second class I went to was 82-7 class. And so went to that first class, and they put everybody in alphabetical order. So it is Boone. I sat up front, right in the middle of the front row, and you were right there where all the guys that were teaching the class, who were floormen, probably my age now. They were in their 50s, 60s, some late 60s at the time, in 1980. And that would be Roland Holder, Mac McLaughlin. Roland Holder with Gentry Holder Floors out of Shreveport, Louisiana. And Matt McLaughlin, I think, worked for Pownell for 52 years. And then Harold Reed was with Trinity, I want to say out of Dallas, Texas. And they were older men at that time. So when the class started, you know how you just get to click with somebody. And for me it was those three guys, especially Roland. And I think I kept in touch with Roland more than any of them through the years. But you look at how those gentlemen handled themselves, the knowledge that they could actually speak into your mind or your heart. They would tell you, they would show you in a demonstration, and then you got to go to your panel or your station, and you actually got to work with a group of men or women that were in the class. And in those days, I think that first class was maybe 45, 50 people. In the second class, in 1982, was even bigger than that. There might have been 75 or 80 people, or even more in that class. But it was the way they handled themselves, it was the way they spoke, it was the way they explained, was simple, but it was very powerful. And in my mind, I thought, these are things that my mom and dad were, teaching back at home in Jacksonville. And I think at that point, I realized how important it was when you train and when you teach of how you handle yourself and how you speak to that person and how you make them feel comfortable. Because a lot of times people are intimidated by either age, your knowledge, or years of experience of what you're doing. They seem to clamp up and not ask questions, possibly making more mistakes doing that. So I've always believed the dumbest question is the one you don't ask, so I always ask questions. And so I learned from those guys, and it really was a life-changing experience for me to sit up and pay attention. And then as the years went by, 1992, I was invited on the board at the NWFA as a contractor steering committee. And I think I was on the board for maybe 1 year and got offered a job as tech director in 1993. And just for reasons in life, I turned that job down. Was offered the same job at the end of 1995, and I went to work for the NWFA from 1996, I think, to the summer of 2000 for about 4.5 years.
I think people go ahead, sorry.
And in that time, before working for the NWFA, I was invited in 1994 to the NAFMA school. And that's the school in Memphis, Tennessee that had been around, again, since 1979. And Mickey Moore was in charge of that school, and Mickey Moore was the tech director for NAFMA. At that point, I think for 27 years, Mickey was tech director for NAFMA. But Mickey had invited me up, and you kind of go into that school as what they call a monitor, and then you had your main instructors. And in those days, the instructors were factory reps. And the way I saw it as a floor man is that there were some factory reps that knew a lot. There were some factory reps that were former floor men, but there were a lot there that never put a floor down. And these guys were leading the class. So my comment to Mickey was I was asked a question in one of the NAFMA school meetings, is what would I do to change the school? When what I would do was take those factory reps and make those guys helpers, and take the floor men who were the helpers and make them the leaders of the class. And those classes were 100 students. I think we had 100 students in the class. We had bleachers. We had a big demo panel. We had somewhere around maybe 40 to 50, when I say instructors, other factory reps, other floor men that came and helped. We had people that did the sawing during the installation part. We had demo times each day, and that was actually a 5-day class. And that was probably the greatest school in its time. To me, that's where it all started. And then somewhere along the line, the NAFMA had merged with the NWFA on training. So NAFMA was around since like 1909, and the NWFA was established, I think, 1985 is when they were they were formed. So I look back on it, those men that were leading that school were a bunch of floormen. And they knew exactly what to do, and I learned from that as well as your own experience. When I began the training, is I run the training programs at the NWFA like a job. It's where we start, that's where we're going to finish. And we got every step in between, and you have to do step B before you can get to step C. And so in my mind, if I run it like a job, we could only do nothing but good from start to finish. And there's a lot of people that played a part in putting that whole program together. As far as on my part of not knowing how to put things in order, bullet points, outline, was really tough. And to get that out, I know when I went to work for NWFA that year that I started tech director, Christine Coates was actually president of the NWFA, and we were assigned to put together a whole new curriculum mainframe for the NWFA training program. And Chris was able to extract from my mind all the knowledge and years of experience that was there that I literally couldn't put on paper. But with her help, we were able to put together some excellent schools and classes for the NWFA and for other associations. So with Chris's help, Mickey Moore's help, a guy named Woody Hilscher, I think Woody worked for Bone at that time. Woody was on the board at the NWFA, the Education Committee. Jim Garth, those people were encouraging enough, people that I knew prior to going to work for the NWFA, were encouraging enough to push you along, to keep you in line, to keep you intact, keep you focused on what you're doing. And I would say those schools in those days were probably some of the best for their time as far as the level of education. It was really good.
I know I got into it as the NWFA was kicking in, and they explained to me that the National Oak Flooring Manufacturers Association, or NOFMA, like we're talking about, originally was to look at the industry and govern it as if you're going to manufacture hardwood flooring, it needs to be made a certain way and to a certain specification and grading. And then after that, they were like, okay, we know how to make wood, but we don't have enough people installing it properly, doing things properly. Even today, I'll do an inspection. I'll look at something and say, that's not a NOFMA cut piece of lumber. It's wainscoting. It's noisy. It's tight. It's not hardwood flooring. When you look at how the material is built, it's years and years of an evolution of people looking at it the right way, making it solid, quiet, not noisy, because squeaks make squawks, as they used to tell us. And then I remember them saying, we need a governing body of people like you to come in and make sure people are being trained to do this, not just mill it. Let's do this other side. And for years, NWFA was the training and technician side of it, and NOFMA made sure things were manufactured correctly. And like you just said, I remember several years back, they became one. They kind of put the whole family together. Is that what they do now? The factories that mill it are combining with the people that technically know how to teach it, and it's one big thing? They're one unit now?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of manufacturers out there to have their own training programs or classes.
Okay.
Which I think that's good, because if you go through the NWFA, I know a lot of things. Even though the training's good, they got some excellent trainers at the NWFA now. Some people that I've known for years, floormen that I've known for years, and they got some good training classes and seminars out there. But when it comes to that part, each manufacturer has their own training specifically to how they want their product used or applied, whatever it may be. And I think that's good for the industry. I also think that's good for the contractor as well.
In between all that, where you got to this point, are you still with your father's company, or are you saying, I'm going to move towards training?
No, I actually left my father's company in 1982.
Okay.
So not long after I went to that school, that second school in Memphis, Tennessee, I actually decided it was time to be on your own. So if you're going to learn how to live life and make all the mistakes that you can make and learn how to be your own man or wood floor man, is go out there and do it on your own, separate from a family business. So, and I think it's important that all of us look at training. If you get the opportunity to teach someone, spend a time with someone, point them in the right way, show them how to run a machine, whether it's running a machine, applying finish, applying stain, whatever it may be, I think that you should take that opportunity to do so. And for me, being around it my whole life, being around the industry, the NWFA, they have a Wood Floor of the Year program. And in my mind and heart, I was never, even though I support the program, there's a lot of good craftsmen out there. I was one of those guys that I was never interested in entering the Wood Floor of the Year, doing anything like that to that nature. There's plenty of jobs out there I'm sure that I've done that you could get an award off of. But my biggest goal was, what my interest was in that man or woman that walked in the door, that wanted to learn the trade, the craft. I think that's where my heart was paying attention to that person that came in. And plenty of times you'd go to a school, and whether you had 35 students or the big classes like the Nachman schools where you had 100, you could pick one person out in that class that was really struggling with listening. Maybe they were intimidated. They didn't want to speak up. But you knew that they were there for one reason, is that to learn everything they could at this class so they could take it with them. And I've ran into plenty of people that's been to the classes and said, man, we came to your class down there in Memphis, Tennessee, and I just want you to know, for me and my family, that was a life-changing experience. And it's all done by a team of professionals, is that you can't win a ball game standing on home plate by yourself. It's a team. Everyone has a base to cover. Everyone has a duty. Everyone has a responsibility. You only have 5 days with that group. You only have 3 days with that group, or 2 days, or whatever it may be. And you got to figure out in those couple days, how can you get to that person or that group when they walk out the door that they've heard and understood what you just taught them. Sure. And it has meaning, and it carries, and it stays with them when they walk away. And you'll get a call maybe 3 months later and say, hey, I was just doing this job today, and what you taught us in the class, man, it just happened today. And I get it. The lights came on. And so when you get those calls, or you run into those individuals at different, maybe another school or an NWFA show somewhere, it's rewarding to know that you were able to be a part of a team of professionals, that you could actually help someone, train them, point them in the right way, change their thinking in a sense, to, hey, this is how it should be done.
It's different, isn't it, when you get really good at something and someone says to you, tell me how you did that. Isn't it interesting? Don't you, in your head you go, how do I do that? And I remember teaching someone guitar, and I was terrible at it. I got so much better at it as I started explaining it to somebody else. Same like you're saying with flooring. You get that opportunity to take what you know, and now you have to explain it to people. When's the first time, do you remember the first time anybody ever said, you're good, now we need you to teach somebody else, go train? When was that very first time that you're like, I got to train people to do this? When did that come up? That had to be fascinating.
Right, I think they came when I was at the Nachman schools back in the early days, 1980, 82, is that you're paying attention to everything that's being taught you, that's being said or demonstrated. And you know that you got to go back to your family business, and you're going to hire people. And I learned from those guys the importance of, even though you were already doing it, training people how to run machines and stuff, the importance of bringing somebody in, making them feel comfortable, show them how to run different machines, show them how to apply different finishes, and teach them the right way to where you can do work on a professional level. Sure. It's to me, it's no joke getting out there, taking on a big job, and when you walk away, to make it look perfect from end to end. And you look back at what the floor looked like in the beginning, and then when you get that final coat on, maybe you're the guy that moved the furniture, or you go back and inspect your work the next day, and you look at it and everything turned out good. It's a good feeling that you take a floor that's in pretty rough shape and make it look all brand new again. So, and when you're teaching that, you're taking what you do with your hands and your back and your feet, but running your sanding equipment, keeping everything clean and in order, and you're trying to put that in somebody's mind. You're trying to set the example or demonstrate this is the level of how things are done. So it's something to pay attention to and take seriously.
This episode is brought to you by Odie's Oil. Developed by a wood flooring pro, no finish is more safe, durable, beautifying, and versatile, with lower cost and higher profit margin. Experience the pinnacle of finish with free on-site demos and training. Learn more at odiesoil.com. That's ODIES oil.com.
Is there a big difference between then and what training is like today in either NOFMA or NWFA? There must be a lot that's different.
No, there's not. So if you think about it, if you take a sander, edger, and a buffer, and these days you got a vacuum cleaner, you can go out and make a job look good. And what I say is that putting the right person in a training spot is, to me, is critical. If you get a person that's maybe has a chip on their shoulder, maybe needs an attitude adjustment, maybe have some ego there, and one of the things we did at the NWFA schools is that we would tell them to check their ego and their attitude at the door, is that we've got 35 students that we got to train for 3 days here. And this is what we need from you, whether they were a factory rep, where they had a segment of the class, not necessarily training, but maybe explanation of their product, or if it was another floor man from another company that we invited to the school to help train. Because if you've got 6 panels, 6 stations, then you need a well-seasoned floor man at each station. Now, whoever the helper may be, it could be another floor man or a manufacturer rep, but that station had to have a well-seasoned floor man to actually run that panel. And I think through the years, as far as students, there's probably 2 of them I've thrown out of class, given their money back, whatever. As far as instructors, there was a number of them you would invite once, but you didn't invite them back, and the reason is that they couldn't handle themselves.
Sure.
And when that happens, it disrupts the whole class. These people paid money to be there, money to learn, taking time out of their schedule and away from their business, and at least you could give them 2 days, 3 days, 5 days of a real good experience instead of having someone's ego getting in the way of the class. So pretty simple to me. Sure. I'd invite you once. If you didn't walk the line, I wouldn't invite you back again.
One strike, you're out.
Right.
Sometimes there's these people and they're very verbose and they want to jump out and they're waiting to attack you and they're looking for things. Then there's always a quiet person in the back that will come up to you later and say, I paid a lot of money. I really need to learn here. Right. And those are the guys that you can get through to. When you go back to Harold Reed, Roland Holder, and Mac McLaughlin, did they impart upon you like, hey, listen, here's some approaches you're going to want to use to your teaching system with these people? So was it just technical, or did they say, here's how to be a teacher, here's how to...
Not necessarily. I think it was all done through example.
Okay.
Those guys didn't have to say a word. They handled themselves so well. And their word and deed, their explanation of what they taught was they kept your undivided attention. I don't think anyone in those days disrupted the class like they had in just past years, recent years, where you get somebody that's over in the corner talking to their buddy or they're on the phone. So back then, when those guys spoke, everybody listened. And I think the expectation of the class, it was a professional class. And everybody's mindset was their company paid for them to be there, so let's use all of our time wisely and learn as much as we can.
Is your life now full-blown hands-on teaching? You don't go out and like sand and finish and run crews and go do day-to-day work?
Yeah, no, I still do sand
still
and finish.
Do that too, okay.
Yeah,
most guys still do.
I either work with my son Justin or my friend Charlie Green down in Ocala.
Okay. Yeah.
I met Charlie at the school, at a school we did for Good on Hard Pine when I worked at the NWFA in 1998. And we put on a special 3-day school on how to sand and finish antique hard pine. And so we had drum sanders, belt sanders, not the best for that application. And we did a school there, and I met Charlie Green from Ocala, and Charlie and I, through the years, I think I started hanging out with Charlie officially in 2003, and I think I go down to Ocala a couple times a month, work on a job, hang out. But when you meet these professionals at the schools and you become friends, it's a good thing. You learn from each other. So I get to go out there with either Justin, who runs the family business back in Jacksonville, or hang out with Charlie. I might do some repairs around town for some architects or builders that I know, small repairs. But I try to keep myself active with the tools and also at the training schools. So I kind of feel like it's if you play a guitar, then I always play a guitar. Don't ever put it down. So if you're running the tools and you're going to be training, keeping your hands on those tools on a regular basis is your best advantage in training, because it keeps your mind sharp.
Do you find that when you're in training mode, is there a style? Do you have a style you go, well, this is my style? Is everybody, compared to your other trainers, are they all a little different than you?
I think we're all different in how we train.
What's like the style difference between trainers?
But I think you have to have the natural gift to be able to teach and communicate. And I think it's something you're born with. I think it's something God gives you as a gift, as a talent, that once you learn what it is and how to use it, that you can apply that wherever you go in life. But what I expect at the schools is, we have class, we have introduction, we have classroom, we have books, manuals, we have a time schedule. Want everybody to introduce themselves. The first night of the class, once we go through the first day, they're with all the training. Again, you explain it in the class, so we have PowerPoint time. Sometimes that's an hour and a half, depending upon what class. Then we have demo time, where we go out. Everything that we just spoke about in the PowerPoint presentation, we actually have demos, whether we're going to demo the big machine, the edger, the buffer, hand scraping, whatever it may be. And if we're running machines at that time of the day, we'll demo all that equipment. Then when we get to finishes and stains, then we have a demo segment for all that. We have a demo for hand scraping, sharpen the scraper, what files to use. So we go through everything in detail. And then on the first night at the American Standard Schools, is we have a big dinner. We take these guys out at our advanced class. And I've had a lot of guys come back and say, man, that first night out for dinner is really the ticket to bonding everyone together, because you're all pretty much strangers sitting in the class. And when you get a bunch of floormen together, they're all afraid to ask a question or say something, because this guy over here might know the answer and these five guys don't. Right. So once they start talking, you sit them down at a table to have a nice meal. It's like the next day, it's like they're best friends by the time they leave the class. All the social media stuff and that you do, and they get each other's phone number, text message, and they contact each other, and friendships are made. So I think that's the way to bring them together. But you got to think about these guys come to the school to learn, and you got to make them feel comfortable. You got to make them feel important. When I say that sincerely, they're there to learn about the trade, about flooring. They're also at a manufacturer school. They're there to learn about the product, whether it's sanding machines, finishes, adhesives, stains, whatever it may be. They're there to learn about that product, and maybe they used that product before. Maybe they're looking for a new product or a new machine. But you got to pay attention to the time that you spend with them, that you go through everything in detail. And at my classes, everything's put on paper. So you don't miss a lick. So it's there. They have the same schedule. They have the same work orders. So when we go, we have a demo order. We have work orders. When they get to the work order, it tells them exactly from step 1 to step 12 of what you're going to do on this station with this wood, color, stain, type of finish, all your sanding sequences, all the way down to the last code. It spells it out for them. So if you put things in the form of like a job order, which is what these are, we call them work orders, It's like a job order. You're going to Mrs. Smith's house. You're going to sand and finish this red oak floor. It's going to go this color stain and this type of finish and this sheen of finish. If you put it out of order, it also gets their mind adjusted to keeping on track with what they're doing at the job, of how step 1 goes to step 12 goes. So that's the way the school, for me, that's the way it worked the best. And I run the schools like a job. So I will say this, something that I didn't touch on earlier. At the Knopfman School, back through all the Knopfman schools that were done in Memphis, Tennessee, and some other schools that we did out of the country that were some Knopfman schools, is that Mickey had I think it was 7 o'clock every morning, we had an instructor meeting every morning. So it's a 5-day school. We had 5 meetings. And you got a little packet. It was called Instructors' Duties and Responsibilities. So if you were the monitor or the helper man of that station, you also had responsibilities. And if you were the lead man, it spelled out those responsibilities, and we went over them daily. And the reason for that was you had a duty and responsibility, to the student, to the class, to each other, to maintain your professionalism all the way through. That doesn't mean go out and get plastered the night before and show up all foggy-headed that you couldn't lead that panel. And so to me, I took that very seriously, that we would have those meetings. We would ask any questions. If there was any problems, they were brought up. They were put to peace. We got that worked out. Let's move through this day and make this day as good as the day before. And so I thought that was probably the best thing of keeping the ones responsible mindful of their responsibilities and duties. And that was like I said, every morning at 7 o'clock. That's what we did. And if you missed a meeting, you were not say you were scalded, but you were warned. And I think 99% of the time everybody was there at those meetings. So I did want to point that out. When you're leading a group of people, it's a team effort. It's a huge responsibility on everybody's part that's involved.
It's interesting they tell you, like, here's your pilot has a checklist. You could fly 57 missions over Vietnam, but they're like, here, you have a 10-point checklist, don't miss it. So you start the day with a checklist. Don't forget, people, they're here, they're paying. We have to impart knowledge upon them. Here's what you need to be able to do today. That's sharp.
Right.
Do they discuss with the group, how do you be really constructive with your criticism of their critiquing their work and still motivating them? Because there's going to be people that are going to struggle. How do you say, listen, I know you've had to have seen somebody and you want to go, who taught you to do this? I've seen guys run edgers. They're left, right. They're running a vacuum cleaner, and you go, who taught you this? Right. Even the NWFA manuals teach you a little J-hook or a little process. When you're critiquing people, how do you go from the harsher critiques to saying, listen, don't lose faith, stay motivated in what you're doing?
Right. I guess a good example would be just a couple years back, I'm going to say maybe 4 years ago now, I presented to Brian that I was going to do an edger school. And Brian's words were, what the hell are you going to do at an edger school, Daniel? And I said, well, this is what we're going to do, Brian. We're going to take these things apart, and everything that the floor man that runs that machine can do at the job site, he needs to know how to do. Just like changing a spare tire on your work truck, If a guy gets a flat tire and he can't change that tire, he's stranded. Right. So the way I look at it is running a machine, running an edger for all the years that I've run it. And so anyway, put together this curriculum and program. And that school was probably the most popular school that I ever done of all time. I mean, we had our NOPMA schools, our NWFA schools, but that was a good class. And it's called the Original American Standards Edgers Only class. And in that class, you talk about critiquing people, is everybody comes to the class. We only allow 8 students. That comes to that class. They bring their edger. They fix it up. They set it up. They dress the pad on it, they put the paper on it, and they watch the next guy do it. So the first guy, he watches the next 7 guys, and that's the way the class run. And the reason in doing that, it just keeps in their mind of everything that we just done. They get to watch it 7 more times, 6 more times, or whatever it may be. And it seems repetitive, and it is put together that way. But when they start running the edger, so we do that before lunchtime. We have lunch. After lunchtime, hey, you go out there, you get your edger, and we run 8 edgers all at one time at the training center or wherever we're at. And they run the edger. I said, you guys just edge for 15 minutes like you run it. And then I got these super bright flashlights, and I'll take that light, and we'll shine the light from up here. And I said, man, all right, I'll go to the first guy. I just pick somebody, and put the light on it from up top. From 5 foot up, 6 foot up. Put the light on. How's it look? He said, man, it looks really good. And then I changed the perspective of the light over here to the floor, and it's all dug up. It's dug up. It's got cuts in it. It's got swirls in it. And then the first guy that snickers, I'm gonna go to his panel, to his area, and put the light on his.
You can put stain on it,
and his may look just like this guy right here just dug it all up, or it may look worse.
Scared me already. I'm waiting for the stain to show up and put the light.
And so when you go to every one of them, and you put the light on it, and they realize that they all edge the same, and it's all dug up, and it's all got swirl marks in it, and they all look at each other and they realize this guy's got 20 years experience, this guy's got 15, this guy's got 5, and this guy's got 0, whatever it may be. They all realize they're standing on the same ground. They all edge pretty much the same way. And until you teach them technique of how to run that machine, how to hold it, how to clock it, and I can take the edger and go up right on the spot that they just got dug up and edge it, and it'll be perfectly smooth. You put the light on it, it'll be flat as glass. And they'll look at you and go, what'd you do?
Right.
And it's in clocking the machine, but that class is probably the most effective of how do you critique them? You show them exactly what they did wrong right then. And if you're going to train a good floor man and you let them slip by on little things here or there, if you let them do it once, they'll always do it because they won't know. But if you reveal it to them at that point, and it's a serious class, but it also has a lot of good humor in it.
Sure.
And there's a lot of funny times. And once they realize that they're let off the hook because everybody hits the same way, then you can kind of see this piece come over the class like, okay, what's this guy going to show us to change what we're doing? And I guarantee you every class, every guy left a changed edger man. But I will say the biggest point on critiquing is if they do something incorrect, it's not wrong, it's just incorrect. So you don't want to put them down. You don't want to shout them down, anything like that. You just want to say, hey, man, if you just take this edger and move it right here, everything that you're doing showing up in that floor, it'll go away if you just do this. And repetition, running a machine like it's on a rail, how you handle that machine, and they come to the knowledge of wherever I move it, it's cutting, it's digging. And if you run it in a specific style, technique, pattern, you realize that you can make that machine cut super smooth. So you take myself, I edge one way. My friend Steve Seaball in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, he edges another way, but both are excellent edging techniques. He can train his way, and I can train mine, and that person's going to go away a good edger man.
I was going to ask you if people use different approaches and still come to equal footing.
Correct.
Yeah.
And once you do that, and they realize that they can edge with speed, and it gives them a flat sanding surface. Sure. These guys are amazed at how fast that they can speed up the edging process to where they feel confident and comfortable when they leave. They say, "Okay, I got this."
Can you get a guy trained to do a one cut? Because that would be the dream of the
that's what
one cut later.
That's what the class is all about. There was I think the very first class we did in Charlotte. There was a kid from right up the road from Charlotte there. I think he was with a company called Unique Floors. Forgive me, but I can't remember his name. Big, tall kid. He was 18 years old. And he was working for a company where he was going to be the lead edger man. And I got where he was the one I probably spent the most time with. And he was edging about a 3-foot square area. And I went up to him and I said, hey, man, just do it like this. And I would show him. He would do it again. We'd put the light on it. It would have some digs in it. I'd show him again. He would do it. And finally, I just took my phone out, turned the video on, and videoed him for maybe 2 minutes. And then I stopped him. I said, all right, now watch this video right here. I said, this is the instruction that I give you. How are you edging? And he just looked at me and he says, I'm doing it backwards.
Right.
He said, when you say go up, I'm going down. When you say go down, I'm going up. I said, that's where your cut lines are coming from.
Yeah.
So do it in this fashion here. And so he did, and he hit about a 5 square foot, about 25 square feet, put the light on it, and out of the 100 digs he had in this one, he only had 2 in that 5 square feet. And I said, so now just go back and just keep this in your mind. And when you go back to train some of these guys at your company, this is a good place to start. And that kid left on cloud 9. I got a message, I think, from his boss a couple of days later. So, man, this is a whole brand new kid. But he had the confidence that he could pick that machine up and do a good job at it. And that's the ultimate goal of a training class, is that wood floor professional, he could be a one-day wood professional or a 1 year or a 10-year, that when he walks out that door, that he's got the confidence that he can run that machine and make the wood look as good as it can be.
We had so much to discuss with lifelong wood floor pro Daniel Boone that we're breaking this talk up into 2 parts. Keep an eye out for part 2 of our conversation with Daniel coming soon. If you liked this episode, please remember to rate and review All Things Wood Floor, and don't forget to subscribe.